Guys, please, if you can, join the locals, the Patreon, the Cash App, the Buy Me a Coffee, PayPal. Those are right now, they were supplementing the podcast. Right now, those are approaching like $1,500 a month. If those can get to, I don't know, $3,000 a month by the end of the year, the show will pretty much be invincible. The show makes money from Rumble, makes money from YouTube, and makes money from Spotify. But those can and have in the past cut off all payment with no warning. I have no contracts with any of them. I've tried. Every month, I don't know if I'm getting paid by them. As the show makes more and more from Patreon and people just dropping $5 here and there, it's becoming decentralized in terms of revenue. And because of that, it's becoming near invincible to where it no longer is, okay, we just got to stay on YouTube. We just got to stay on Rumble. We got to keep growing. It's hitting a point where the show can now continue regardless of the presidential administration, regardless of the winds of cancel culture and whatnot. Honestly, this is what I've always wanted. It just has never really seemed to be working. For whatever reason, in 2026, it's working. Please, if you can, it is not meaningless if you can join for $1 a month. If you can join for $20 a month, like, dude, you are actually moving the needle to keep this show not only free, but unhinged, uncensored, and frankly, a cobbled together, unproduced mess. But that's why I love it. And I think that's why you guys love it. So please, if you can, join any of those. Those links are in the description. They're in the pinned comment. Thank you.
Being
And
recorded.
whoops, we are recording on Friday, February 13th, 2026 at and Friday the 13th. Fuck this day. Friday, February 13th, 2026 at 12:31 p.m. Eastern Time with Dr. Dale Comstock. You guys can go to the description. Find his Instagram, his Twitter, his books, all that good stuff. Yeah, as always, I never have any topic, but I was going to ask you, because we've talked about the Maduro raid. Is that something that in and of itself, the fact that it happens, does that have value now going forward around the world? That that no one knows what could happen? Is there real value in that? Is it a bluster? Do other first world nations does China and Russia look at it and they're like, we kind of know what they did, or was this straight up some like UFO spooky shit that now everyone is like, what in God's name is this?
I think, comparatively speaking, look, when I've looked at all the other, working with other militaries and things like that, they're not even close. Their best forces out there are not even on par, not even close to the unit, right? So, and that we could actually pull a mission off like that in a matter of a couple of months, by the way, because they weren't planning for years; they were planning it for months to execute that thing, that operation, almost flawlessly. That's and then bypass all the detection systems, radars, missile systems. That's should I think that should really scare the best military and the best, the like the Chinese, the Russians. I'm saying they have the best military, but that should really worry them because like, holy crap, our stuff didn't work. We couldn't detect them. And this has never happened at this scale ever in history. I don't think, I mean, again, compare, it's a comparison, but I don't think something like a raid like this has ever happened other than Modelo Prison in Panama when we went and rescued Kurt Muse, right? It's very similar.
Hmm.
Um, and so the unit has successfully done this at least twice that the public knows about, right? Twice. And that should scare everybody out there that's an adversary. They should realize we don't, I doubt seriously they have a similar capability because I don't see the quality in their militaries. And I'll give you some examples. If you look at most militaries around the world, especially the ones that were involved in, all the wars with NATO and some of the coalition forces, if you just look at their equipment, and I'm gonna break it down a little bit. All right. So one cool thing about the unit when I was there, it's considered a tier one unit, which means they get funding in peacetime as if they're in wartime, right? Because they're always on alert, just like a nuclear submarine. So with that kind of funding, we were actually tasked as operators to always look at new ideas, new ways of doing business, new equipment, developing stuff, right? Research and development. Like I've actually created quite a few items over there that have actually are being sold like in Black Hawk magazine. I see my thing that I created on the in these in the magazine. Holy smokes, man. I see stuff that other guys in my unit made, and now it's for commercial use. But the M4 system, right? Carping system. Um, when back in the day when I was there, we were using car 15s. All right. So car 15s, fixed carrying handle, all that type of stuff. And we didn't have gun lights. That wasn't in existence. So we were like, for example, we were attaching QXL, the diving lights, right? And mag lights to the to the receiver of the weapon. Aim points hadn't come out yet. They did come out early. In fact, the first ones that came out were aim point 2000s. We started using those. That was state of the art. And then we started modifying things like the weapons themselves. We started attaching the broom handles. We created those. The broom handle grip on the front of the stock, where shit like that. I know the guy who actually did it. He's one of my teammates, and we were constantly modifying weapons, creating weapons, equipment. For example, we were cutting the pockets off of our BDU smocks, the bottom ones, because we would tuck our shirts into our BDU pants. We had these extra pockets, right? When you're wearing all your gear, you can't reach under and grab stuff out of your pockets. So we actually started attaching pockets on the shoulders, so you can just reach in and grab it, right? We were before night vision goggles came out. Well, the new ones, we had the PVS 15s, I believe they were called. They were like these big boxes you attached to your face, it had foam on it and strap it on your head. It was very cumbersome. But we started attaching those to like our helmets, like Gentex helmets and stuff like that. We using Velcro, right? We got really creative. How do we make this thing work so we can ride a motorcycle at night with night vision goggles on it, right? And went down that path. I was looking for things. I was actually starting to research how do we communicate? For example, if you have multiple vehicles moving, is there a way that not only can we communicate between all the vehicles, but look at a screen and be able to pinpoint all the other vehicles on the battlefield, our vehicles on the battlefield, right? Do like satellite imagery you radios and things like that. That's where we were at in my day. So we did, even the GPS. Now we didn't create the GPS, but we did get the first one of the first Magellans, right? And it was a modular system, right? You had a handheld piece, you had the remote big old box antenna, right? So there's a lot of stuff to this thing. It wasn't very practical to carry, but we did start using those under certain circumstances. And I noticed that all of a sudden now, when the rest of the world actually started seeing us use them, like in the battlefield, take any conflict you want. Now all of a sudden you see a lot of foreign forces. They're wearing the same, even the Russians, right? They're modifying their AK-47s. They're putting adjunct sighting systems on top, these guns are getting pretty sexy. The AK-47, they weren't very adaptable to adjunct like sighting systems and things like that, just by design. For example, the top receiver is just very flimsy. How do you attach something to the top of that? Well, they've created, attachment points and things like that. So the AK-47 can be, again, very modular, like an M4, right? So, but if you look at around the world, it's like, oh yeah, the satellite, SATCOM radios, right? So we have, if you look at the SATCOM antennas today, like the PRC 104, for example, that's old school, but it's got a collapsible antenna. You straighten it out, you put out the little legs, and when you open it up, it's nothing but wire, right? And it's a satellite, becomes literally a satellite directional type of antenna. We were creating stuff like that everywhere. And now you see it, everybody's using very similar equipment, similar uniforms. So in that respect, we were light years ahead of everybody. People were looking at like, what are those guys doing now? and they were, I mean, we can't run around and hide it. I mean, you see us, it's like,
Mhm.
that's kind of cool. That's a good idea, putting pockets and up here, right? And so a lot of the unit has created a lot of technology, a lot of equipment. They've created a lot of ideas that people of other militaries around the world, including our enemies, have adapted, right? But what they haven't adapted, I'm pretty sure, because they don't actually get to see those unless they're on the receiving end. They don't actually get to see the unit's tactics, techniques, and
Yeah.
procedures. How do they do things, right? And they don't get to see the big picture. How did they integrate, technology, equipment, and manpower, and leverage that and direct it and make it directional and surgical to take out a target. Like I said, unless you're on the receiving end, you get to see it for a second and then you're dead, right? So I think um, that's where we have the advantage. And I think that would probably bring a lot of other countries to, bring them to a pause. Not that we're going to go in and do it again to some country. We're going to snatch Putin, for example, or nothing like that. But what it does do is speaks to that capability that that organization has. That's, again, like I said, it's light years ahead of a lot of people. And the other thing that I think we may have already talked about this. I was on another couple of podcasts, so that's why I'm kind of a little confused who I said what to. But somebody made a point about, you know, the advancement of technology and how it's made us more effective. And, thanks to technology, we were able to go in there and they were able to go in there and accomplish the mission. I had to, I had to push back a little bit on that because, yeah, technology is great. But at the end of the day, mission accomplishment always boils down to the man on the battlefield with the gun,
I was about to, one of the first interviews you and I ever did, like 6 years ago, is you came down
right?
to all the tech in the world. Yeah, man in the field with a gun. Yeah.
That's right, right? Because after technology fails, it runs its course, who's going to finish the job? It's the dude with the gun, right? So, and that's exactly how it played out. You can talk about acoustic weapons and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, it was a man on the ground that actually had to grab Maduro and his fucking wife and take him out of there, right? And without killing him. So, you know, again, so what kind of man did this, right? I'll bring that up. So, what kind of man can it be? Any man? And honestly, it's no, it can't be any man. This is why Delta has one of the most rigorous, secretive selection courses in the world, right? Processes, because they're they're very particular about who they who they bring on board, and it's not only just a trust thing. Um, it's also a psychological thing, right? So, um, all of us are, we're all humans, but some of us humans are endowed with some things that I don't want to make it sound like we're superior, but it makes us more adaptable to this type of work, right? And so I'll give you a little sidebar. I remember one time very distinctly, after the duty day, me and a bunch of dudes were standing around, drinking, protein shakes or whatever. Now we drink beer too, and and we're all just kind of bullshitting, and we're just kind of wondering, about things. And somebody asked the question, why do you think we got selected to be Delta operators? Because we don't know. They
Yeah.
don't tell you why you got selected. Why did I get picked? And this dude, this is stud next to me, really smart, a lot of experience, trained, didn't get picked. That was an irony, right? Because remember my story, I was 23 at the time, right out of the 82nd. You know what my specialty was? Digging a foxhole and filling it back up, right? And I did that over and over and over, right? And then when I got done doing all that, I got to sit under a tree for a couple of days and clean my M16 because, or if I didn't do that, when I was collecting pine cones and throwing it away, mowing grass, you know, that type of stuff, right? That was my specialty because I was just a basic grunt at 23. I didn't bring any special skills, capabilities, or anything like that. Um, Yet I outperformed and I got selected over many, 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 many other Green Berets, Rangers, etc. But why? yeah, I made the physical standard. I made it through. I endured that part. Um, but it's not just physical. It is physical, but the physicality of it is not because they're looking for a stud that, can, leap over, skyscrapers. It's not about that because if you look at the average Delta operator, he ain't very big. You would never, in his civilian clothes, if he was your neighbor, you would never know it. You're like, hey, Bob, what are you doing today? What do you do for a living? You would assume he's just a regular dude, man. Maybe he works for the Postal Service or something, right? And so it wasn't because you're big or strong, but I will tell you that physicality does matter in that you have to have the endurance, the stamina, the strength, and particularly the strength of mind and the strength of heart to finish this, to get through the selection piece, right? And that's what they really were doing. As I look back, in time, it wasn't, they used your physicality as a medium to test your mind because they didn't force you. In fact, they encouraged you to do things and it wouldn't tell you what the standard of performance was or when it was going to end. It just said do your best, and you push yourself to your limits, and you don't know when it's over. You don't know if you're doing good or not. And every day goes back, and you're still there. You go, okay, well, I'm still here, but you still don't know the standard. And then all of a sudden, your body starts breaking down, um, and then literally you ask yourself, what am I doing? Why am I here? Is this really all worth it? Because I'm in hell right now by myself. And you don't go through this process as a group or as a team. Like, for example, other courses out there, selection courses, like I pick any one you want, buds, special force qualification course from Ranger School, where you're with other dudes and you're doing things together, you're suffering together. And when you suffer together, you can draw strength from each other, and in Delta selection, there's none of that. You're all alone all the time, and you physically start breaking down if you really do the best you can to the point where your body doesn't want to perform anymore, but your mind goes, I got to get there. I want to be this. I want to do this, and your mind has to push the body, even though the body's broken. And then if you can push your broken body over the finish line, which you don't know where that finish line is until they tell you, you know, you made it. You're almost there, but you're not quite there because after you made it just to that point, they go, okay, you're one of the last survivors. You had the mindset to push your broken ass all the way to the end to make it physically over the line. But there's one more piece to this thing, right? And then that's where you go into all the other stuff, the psychological evaluations and the boards and things like that, to ensure that, yep, you are the guy we want. Because I know guys that have made it through all the way through the physical selection piece and were turned away at the board. They didn't have whatever it is they were looking for up here. They didn't have it. And these were good dudes. In fact, I had a guy on my special forces team. I won't mention his name. He was my 18 Fox. Basically, he was an E7. He was he was my operations and intelligence guys on my team. Um, he was also I believe, an 18 Bravo, which is a light and heavy weapons expert, and very quiet, very stoic, very capable guy. You know, he's a stud. And I never knew this, but one day he and I had a little personal conversation, and he told me that he tried for the unit, and they basically at the end said, "You're not it," but they wouldn't tell him why, right? So he's like, "I did everything, I made it all the way here, and you're telling me, you guys, after you talk to me, you're like, yeah, you're not it." He goes, "What's wrong with me?" Right? So that was weighed on him very heavily,
Shit.
right? Even at that time, he was like, "Well, what's wrong with me? I did everything that I was required to do." But I got turned away at the very end in a conversation, right? And and that really, really, really bothered him even to that day because he kept asking himself, "What's wrong with me?" Right? And I can understand that. I mean, shit, I probably would have did the same thing, But it's a so where I'm going with this is so they select people with a certain mindset that are very physical but don't look it. And they're picking the guy that has certain innate qualities, psychological qualities that are in high demand but in short supply, right? So this is why when you look at the statistics, how many guys actually make it, there's sometimes maybe less than 1% of the candidates that actually go through selection actually make it. 1% make it and make it all the way to the unit. Um, it's I don't know of any other course or selection process. Again, like I don't know what the attrition rate is for buds because I'm not a SEAL, but I know it's not one, and I know it's not just five. It's quite a few, just like Ranger School, Special Forces, because those are all formidable courses, schools as well. But they weigh in more heavily on the physical side, and also the other difference is the I believe the unit is looking for men that can work unilaterally and as a collective, right? So as a team or on your own, right? With the same effect. So the unit should be able to count on me to go out and represent the organization, um, whether it's going to the chief of staff or hell, the president, or be an advisor to some other general somewhere. They want to know that I can go there and represent the organization, give good advice, good guidance to those people, right? If we are in support of them, and or actually go out and do singleton operations by myself and know that there's a high probability that I can get it done. So so hopefully that kind of you know helps people understand why a Delta operator is different than a SEAL or a Green Beret, which I am, or a Ranger or anybody else out there, because they're looking for a one-man army, essentially. If you want to, I mean, one man, one guy, they can do a lot of damage. So if you take 20 guys,
Hmm.
right, just imagine what they can do. In fact, there was a little over 20 of us on Modelo Prison, you know, and we didn't lose a man. We had some wounded. You expect that, some bad guys got to get lucky and get a shot in, right? But accomplished the mission in 6 minutes. So we flew into the Hornet's Nest in Panama during Noriega's regime. They were waiting for us. They had already been tipped off. They had reinforced the commandancia, the prison. Um, the entire prison had about 120 shooters in it, and 20 of us go in there and kick their ass and get our package and we leave. And that's kind of what happened here with Maduro. So to your original question, should everybody else be quaking in their boots? Well, they should be very cautious, man. If we have the skill and the capability to do that, what else can we do? Maybe that was just an easy
Yeah.
opportunity on the spectrum. Maybe they're capable of doing even more complicated missions. So um, but for sure, I guarantee you, the rest of the world is looking at their capabilities, going, what kind of tools do we have? What kind of, do we have this stuff? Do we have these kind of things? And can we integrate like this? And and they don't even know what all the what that whole package looked like. I mean, there's talk of acoustic weapons, and how do they bypass the radars, and how do they, turn off the electrical grid system, which happened in Modelo Prison. Also, all the lights went out in the city. Um, they've got to look at everything. And I'm sure their analysts are trying to figure out, okay, what did they use? How much of it? How do they integrate it? How do they control it? And they got their work cut out for them, right? And while they're trying to figure out this last mission, I'm
They're
sure the organization's moved on to the next one, and
evolving. Yeah.
they're already looking at a new capability, right? So, and this is what the irony is when you look at, for example, and we did this too as American military, we always fight the last war, right? So we come out of the war, we need to do this. This is what happened. So we adapt all the SOPs and things we learned from the last war, and we try to adapt it for the new war, right? So, for example, what we do in the desert, like Iraq or Afghanistan, the TTPs there, are not going to work, say, in the jungles of Venezuela, right, or Colombia. It's a different environment. I can't wear desert boots to the jungle. Probably should wear jungle boots, right? Which, by the way, the military doesn't even have those anymore. The best boots they ever made. We have to adapt. We don't get to fly, like we did in the desert when we were in the jungle. There's so many variables, right? But I'm not, I don't care if people call me misogynist. I'm just going to call it like I see it. But for example, women, right? So everybody's like, yeah, women were in combat in Desert Storm, or not Desert Storm, but in Iraq. And they should be able to be infantry and blah, 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 blah. Well, let me tell you something. Getting in an ambush in a vehicle in a desert road in a convoy and you shooting from the vehicle around the vehicle, okay, that's a firefight, okay. But does that qualify this person, this I'll use it, the female, to carry a 80, 90, 100-pound rucksack plus another 30 pounds, 40 pounds of gear, rep weapons, etc. Through the jungles of, I don't know, again, Venezuela, and do that, and sustain themselves out of their rucksack.
Meeting is being recorded.
Um, did you hear that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm recording. Yeah. Weird. Never said it halfway through. But yeah, sorry, women carrying rucksack.
Yeah, yeah. So does that qualify them to be in a combat patrol in the jungle for a month, living out of their rucksack, wearing the same stinky ass uniform for a month and sleeping nut to butt with your other guys for security? No, it doesn't. But that's how everybody tries to equivocate this thing. Well, if they could do that, of course they can. No, you can't. And there's a huge difference to that, right? In that capability. But so now everybody goes, oh, well, women improved themselves in combat in Afghanistan, fighting from a truck because they had to, because if they didn't, they were going to die, right? Because you shoot back or you get shot. And but that doesn't have the equivalency of being on a foot patrol, 12-man, a woman or integrated cohort, 12-man patrol in the jungles in South America or somewhere in Southeast Asia where you're living in the field for a month, right? And you're living out of your backpack, you're carrying radios, batteries, ammunition, medical equipment, right? Everything to sustain that 12-man team is on your backs. And but yet this is what particularly the people on the left would argue. Well, they're fit for combat. They can do combat because they've done combat. So no, it's not the same damn thing. And I remember the first time I had this conversation was with so Alan West invited me to one of his podcasts a long time ago when they were first talking about integrating women into special forces, right? Like literally being Green Berets. And and I pointed out to them, and they were, and it wasn't just the women that they could be Green Berets and they could do all this stuff, but there were a lot of, I don't even want to call them men. I'm going to call them males. There's a difference in my opinion, but I got a lot of flack from males, calling me a misogynist, blah, blah, blah. And then, now this is the same guy that flies a desk from 8 to 5 every day, freaking calculating math and counting or whatever the hell he does. And he's going to challenge me on what I think I know. But here's what I put out there to everybody that's even thinking like that is you don't know what you don't know. Imagine going to the field. All right, whether it's in the jungle or whether it's in a winter environment, you got snow. You're out there for a week, 2 weeks. Everything you have to sustain you is on your back. You're not going to be carrying large parkas and all kinds of stuff to keep you warm or whatever, right? You're going to have basically mission essential equipment in the back. You're going to have just enough to get by. You don't get to bring sleeping bags. You might have a poncho and maybe a poncho liner. That's what's going to keep you warm. And I've been in the field many, many times with my teams where we were soaking wet in freezing rain and snow. We didn't have the things we needed to keep us warm because we couldn't put them in the rucksack and carry it with all the other gear. And imagine you guys are in the field snuggling together just to stay warm. You got one or two guys pulling security, and everybody laying there just trying to stay warm, butt the nut. Or you're in a tight patrol base, like for example, a 12-man patrol. Well, if you stop, usually what you're going to do is we call them a cigarette roll. We all sit down back to back with our rucksacks, all facing outwards, but we're all contacting. We have contact. We have a radio in one of the rucksacks. We pass the hand mic around. The guy's got the hand mics on security, but he's listening to the hand mic, right? So imagine a scenario like that. And if you go take a shit, right, you don't get to go, hey guys, I'm going to take a shit and wander off in the woods somewhere to go take a shit. That's not how that works. You want to take a shit, you got to take it right here. And make sure you shit in a plastic bag and put it back in your rucksack
Hmm.
because you don't want to leave behind sign, right? And so now replace a few of those men with some chick. And
Yeah.
let's just say they tend not to be hot. They tend to be skags, right? But let's just say they happen to be attractive. And by the way, even the skags start looking like beauty queens after a couple of days.
Yeah, you're alone, dude. You're alone for 30 fucking days. Yeah, every guy knows that.
You know? And what do you think is going to happen when, it's really cold and we all got to snuggle nut to
They're
butt?
absolutely gonna guys are gonna start trying to fuck them. It's just what it is.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I gotta go poo poo. Yeah, bitch. Well, right here in front of us, drop the drawers.
Yeah, and everything you're saying is like, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that like women and men are nothing alike each other. That's the
No.
thing is people go, we can't say they're not alike, and that's fine.
The problem society, no, I'm gonna say, yeah, let's just talk about American society, right? The problem is everybody goes, men and women are equal, and we are not. Stop lying to yourself and everybody else. We are not equal, okay? That's a fact. We know that, right? Tend to be bigger, stronger, have heavier bones. We have testosterone. Women don't. They have a little tiny bit. Um, we are not different. Physically, we are not the same. All right. Women can never be as strong as a man. There's some women out there, no doubt, are stronger than men. All right. But on average, more than average, um, most women are going to, even the strongest woman will usually be 80%, will only achieve about 80% of a man's strength if she's really uh, working out really hard and a bodybuilder. They don't have it because they're not designed for that. That's nature said no. Men's job is to provide, to protect, to build. Women's job is to do what? Nurture, right? Nurture, basically. That's give babies nurture. That's what their job is, right? And that's important. So, but they think they have dicks between their legs and they want to do what men can do, and they can't, and they're going to get a lot of men killed. Um, because men are going to do what men do. What do? We protect, and we see a woman that's on our team and she's pinned down or she's in trouble.
Yeah,
What am I going to do? I'm probably
yeah,
going to save her. But you know what? If you and any medic worth his salt will tell you, if you have a wounded soldier in a fight in a gunfight, the best thing you can do for that soldier is win the goddamn
yeah,
fight, right? Not go over and call him a bitch, and you're going to do that because that's what we do. We're going to protect her, but we're also going to be distracted by
yeah.
her. Even if we hate the bitch, right? So that's our nature taking over. I heard people comment the first time I talked about this. Well, men need to keep their dick in their pants, right? These are chicks are saying that. I said you need to keep your legs closed because you know what? You know what I've seen over and over and over. Women are the ones that freaking spreading their legs because they are just as promiscuous as men are, and their nature takes over too. And then when it happens and they get caught, they compromise, it's the man that always gets in trouble. I was at one place without getting too many specifics. We had this one chick on the base. She was pretty good looking. And she had a little bit juice, right? I mean, I say juice, she had some power, a little bit. But she was the only thing. And there were about 12, 12, 15, 12 to 15 Americans on there. And that was it. And, so, well, she was laying down with most of these guys. And when the senior person wanted to take a shot at it, she reported him for, what do you call it? Sexual harassment. And he got relieved. But she's banging everybody else. But because she didn't really like him, but he is the boss and he's trying to put a move on her. And she pulled the freaking, the sexual harassment card. But anyways, going back to, we kind of went off on a tangent just now.
No,
But
you're good.
going back to where we started, so yeah, I hope that answers your question. That I think yeah, yeah, it's an eye opener, man. I think it's an eye opener. It should be, and if it's not, that's great because that just gives us another advantage again. These guys are going to get too relaxed, and we'll do it again and again and again.
But even that about, the side tangent about the women, even that in a sense still, I think backs up your original point in that there are people that are meant for the job and not the jobs. We're talking about men and women, but I mean, just as a broad example, forget men and women. You're still talking about the ones that are qualified and the ones that aren't. That can also be men and men. Well,
That's
by
right.
definition, it is. Not everybody that tries out for Delta Force gets into Delta Force.
That's
And
right.
like your friend said, what's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong with you. What's wrong with a woman? There's nothing wrong with her. They are meant to nurture. And all the guys that are out there on the field, all the Delta Force fucking killers, at one point they were little 2 year olds. And guess what? They were being nurtured, not by a Delta Force commander, by a loving mother. And it's
That's
like
right.
there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that also rolls over into, like you said, you choose the right guy. And that's the
Yeah.
thing is like it's not a participation thing. It's not an equality. You're going out and you're fucking killing. Just call it what it is. You're going out and you're killing. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
You can't be having diversity requirements. You can do that shit in, I don't know, McDonald's or whatever. You're on that level. That doesn't matter. You simply have to have the most efficient and most competent killers, bar none. And I think
Yeah.
that plays right into whether it's men versus women or whether it's men versus other men. There are those that are. My uncle's a brilliant doctor, and there's always a smarter doctor. It doesn't matter how good you are. There's always somebody that's going to blow your doors off. It's just what it is. And
Yeah.
you're going to find somebody that you think's the smartest, and he's going to tell you about someone that's smarter. It's just what it is. And if anything,
Yeah.
it's good. It drives competition. But yeah, it's there's nothing wrong with that. And
Well, it's biology, man, and everybody wants to, you know, they they want to ignore biology, and they think that we're so smart we can overcome biology. Um, w- w- our biology is been ingrained in us for over 2.5 million years. Okay.
billion,
And it's our program. It's our program that has allowed us to continue to perpetuate um, perpetuate our species. And so the humans. And by the way, there's at least 23 to 26 different humans species throughout time already, right? So it ended up that we ended up being the guys that, outperformed everybody else, and we're still here. But it's our nature that allowed for that happen. And so there's this duality. So, we got to reproduce. So how do we protect we have to protect the reproducers, the incubators, so we can make more of us, right? And we've got to feed them so we can make more of us. So who's going to go protect them and feed us? Well, that's going to be this guy over here, the protectors and providers and builders. We're going to go out and kill people, kill things, and protect our incubators. All right. And I know women are gonna freak out there. Oh, he called us an incubator. No, and they're gonna call me misogynist. No, I don't hate women. I only hate certain women, particularly liberal women. Those that believe that they're equal to me and all that kind of crap. Yeah, I'll say it. I hate them. I don't care. It is what it is. But by design, we have innate responsibilities. It's a program. It's impossible to deprogram. I'll tell you why. For example, um, we have an innate inhibition, if you will, to killing people. It's innate, right? So what I mean by that is, if we had no inhibition to killing, we'd be killing each other all day long, right? Like,
yeah,
if there wasn't, right? If my neighbor pissed me off, I'd go and shoot him in the head, right? And regardless of the consequences, right? But we have limiters, right, that keep us from doing things like that, right? Because otherwise, we would have been wiped out a long time ago. So we are not, and there's a lot of evidence to support that. In fact, I'm going to, I can go so far and reference, there's a book out called On Killing by David Grossman. He writes in length about, men combat, who's willing to fight and kill, and who's just gonna go out there and posture and pretend like they're fighting, and shooting, but they're actually not. It's something within us, right? And men are more likely to kill though than women, except the psychopathic bitches out there. But overall, men are more inclined to kill because we have that protection nature in us. All right. Whereas women are literally the peacemakers. This is the problem we're having in the country right now, right? And I'm going to go back and say this too. And I know this is going to piss a lot of people off. They go, well, what about your wife and daughters? I don't care. Women should never have been allowed to vote. That was a
no,
that was a strategic move by politicians, particularly on the left, right? What they wanted to do is play off women's emotions because they are
hmm
emotional. right? They're very emotive.
That's what
But
makes them good nurturers. But then they start looking at it, like, well, let everybody in. They're all hungry, and it's like that's a good trait for a mother. It's not a good trait when you live in the world of, hey, you can't have open borders. It's not how the world works.
well, they're nurtured. That's right. They're going, oh, we should be
Let them
kind.
all in. Yeah, yeah.
And let our enemies in too, right? And we as protectors go, no, keep them assholes out. What are you doing? You're inviting the enemy in, right? We know they're here. We know you and I had a conversation before this. Something that's going on with me right now, right? But there's a classic example. We're letting the enemy come in, right? And they're coming after warriors and protectors in our own country because we allowed our women to vote for the people that would allow them to come in. Most men in their right mind, most men, real men, except for the males, I think are in alignment with what I'm saying.
Yes.
We have to protect. Let's just call this America. Let's just call this our village. We've got to protect the village and keep the predators out from raping our women, killing our children, and destroying our society from within. And that's exactly what's happening right now. It's exactly what's happening right now. It's not because we have difference of opinions, and I'm gonna throw another one out there. A lot of people are gonna hate me, but I don't give a shit because every time I come on a podcast, people come back and they talk all kinds of crap, but never once ever on the street has anybody challenged me.
Of course. Yeah. It's
I dare you, man. I dare you. You better come prepared, man, if you because it ain't gonna go well. But here's the thing, right? Even like I'll use abortion, right? So this is a classic example how politicians have used women's emotion to manipulate voting in our society. So the whole abortion argument, my body, my choice, right? My body, my choice. Well, that sounds pretty reasonable, right? Like, hey, Comstock, we need to take one of your arms off because we need to sew it onto another dude, right? That's my body, it's my choice. I don't want to give up my arm, right? They're kind of using that kind of a mindset, but we're not talking about arms. We're talking about lives,
yeah.
right? So, now they're saying, well, it's my body. I don't want this other human in my body. Get it out. Well, that doesn't really, and that's actually counterintuitive to the nurturing part, right? So, so my question is, why would women, the nurturers, the emotive ones, want to destroy their children from within, right? And so, are they really still women, or are they just freaking monsters? Because what if I said as a man, you know what? I'm not protecting anybody. And I had some dudes breaking my house right now, attack and rape my wife, and I just watched them go, my body, my choice. I'm not risking that. Right. So you see where we're going with this? So what they're trying to do, they're actually define their nature, the whole mind, body, my choice argument. And and they and they're vehement about, it's my body, my choice. Why can't you understand? It's my body. We don't want the government to tell us what to do with our body. But they told you to take a vaccine and you took it. They tell you to do a lot of crap. They tell you a lot of things that you can't do and you do it, right? They tell you can't take certain drugs, right? Illicit drugs, and you don't do it, right? So, and so it was a really smart strategic move on the politicians back what was it, 100 years ago when they decided, was it the 19th Amendment?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they passed the 19th Amendment, because they knew if we could get the woman's emotional vote, because they are the majority of the population, and we can placate to that. I don't want to call it a weakness, but we can exploit that trait of caring, affection and nurturing, and we could take that and we can make that appeal to our other agenda, which is allow more people in so they can vote for my party, right? And we can villainize the guys on the right because they don't respect my body because it's my choice. Dude, it's a winning strategy. As you can see it right now, it's happening all day long. And I know conservative women that are married to veterans, and I remember one in particular when Obama was in office, and we were all chatting, and it's a Navy couple, and we were talking about, who we voted for, and the sailor, he said, I voted, I voted for the Republican, and then the wife chimed in. She goes, "Yeah, I voted for Obama." And I go, "Why would you do that? I mean, you guys are in the Navy. You know, this guy's not pro-military. He says it, but he's not. Why would, and moreover, why would you not follow your husband's lead, right? He is the protector, all right? And so, you know what her answer was basically? Her answer really little was, well, I just thought he was attractive. He's cute. Obama.
Yeah,
That's
I
why she.
mean, yeah, I
And
mean,
I've heard that so many times from so many women, and other people make the same comment. See, they're voting on emotion, right? And tell me again why men should keep their dick in their pants? Because you women are lusting over a man, they're voting for him because he's cute. All right, come on, it's bullshit. And this is why I think we made a huge mistake. It took me a long time to figure this out. Because I was brainwashed and believing like everybody else, we're all equal, equal rights. We all should have a vote and have a say in the thing. And I'm more of a traditionalist, and I'm becoming more and more of a traditionalist now because I see the folly in this system that we have because it's completely upended the entire society. And I mean, I'm a Tate fan, Andrew Tate fan, and he ain't wrong. There's a couple of things I think he's wrong, and like he said, men don't eat sushi. Well, I eat sushi,
sushi's fuck off. Sushi's great. Sashimi, dude.
but but
I'll eat my body weight in sashimi.
no, right? But anyways, but
Yeah,
overall, he's right about male female relations and and those types of things, right? So, I'm in total agreement. And the problem is, particularly in the West and particularly in America, women have been brainwashed in believing that they are equal and they're only equal maybe in the eyes of the law, but physically they're not equal. I'd go so far as to say, in a lot of ways, I know they're not emotionally or mentally not equal. We think differently, hands down, we think differently. Um, and so and then of course, then the argument is, well, diversity is our strength. No, actually, in this scenario, what's happened is it's completely, again, unraveled. What was really what made America great was the society that we had, the frontier days, the men, were protectors and providers, the women were nurturers. That's what helped. It was that system that helped build this country into greatness. And then all of a sudden, what happened in the last 50 years, it's like, we can't win a goddamn war. Why are we not winning the wars? Like we're the most powerful military, and it's sad because I see foreigners laughing at us all the time. You guys ain't won a war lately. Vietnam, yeah, last one was World War II. Aside from that, got Korea, but we lose Vietnam, and we run out of Somalia with our tails between our legs because of Bill Clinton. Then we 20 years in Afghanistan, and we run out and give the enemy $82 billion worth of shit, and they take over the country, and they're right back to where we started. We just keep getting our ass handed to it, and is it because of our soldiers? It's because of our politicians. Okay, and who are these politicians? These are the politicians that who voted for, right? So if only men voted, if only men voted, I would guarantee you America would be even bigger, better, stronger.
yeah.
And I think we would be more cohesive. I think you would see more stability. You would see a country that we would see the same country we had 200 years ago, 100 years ago, that started making us great, right? And now honestly, we're just a super sexy, you know, third world country in a facade of
Sure.
greatness. Yeah, we got lots of money, we got this and that, but you know, living around the world, seeing other countries, over hundreds of them, living there, 101 to be specific. You know, we ain't that much better. Our society, I've been in better societies. And when I say better societies, for example, in America, we have areas like where I live, um, Panama City Beach, which is where I'm at now, relatively conservative, pretty cool place to live. The worst thing we got going on is we got meth heads that maybe break into houses and stuff like that, but we don't have the rampant crime and problems as a lot of other cities in America. So that we do have these little enclaves where we still have, patriots. We still have that American conservative mindset. But if you go to, for example, Indonesia or some of these other Asian countries, you don't find these little enclaves of, you know, conservatives and patriots, you know, in a sea of idiots. Um, everybody is a patriot. Everybody's a national. For example, there is real national pride abroad. You know, I'll use Indonesia for example. There is real solidarity there amongst the people. They might have some differences on a lot of things, but overall, as a nation, they're not going to tolerate, you know, our kinds of bullshit, right? So, and over there, for example, you're either a man or you're a woman, and that's it. There's no in between. They have a different system that works. Yeah, they're not on our level economically. It is what it is. But I think as a civil society, there is a lot of corruption. I'm not going to, but there's corruption everywhere, even our country. I mean, we see it, it's blatant now. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, right? But so all governments have corruption, lots of it. But I'm talking about the society itself, the people tend to be more cohesive, more unified, um, and they're not just, you know, like for example, Indonesia. You don't see this kind of crap, man. You got literally Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, all living together, and nobody's talking about anybody else's faith. Nobody. You know, they don't care about your religion. They're not going to try to eat out of your rice bowl. They're not going to take your rice bowl because you're not like them. They just mind their damn business, and they just want to get along. They want to live and be happy, you know. And you know, and so, you know, again, I'm 62 years old, man. I look at, you know, the journey that I've had in life, man, and where I've been. I never thought I would arrive at a place where we are today in our country. And on one hand, I'm like, thank God we have Trump. But here's my opinion. The guy ain't gonna last, man. You know, the Conservative Party, they've done everything, you know, the left will never stop because the left really are Marxist socialists. Look at Mondami, that monkey in freaking New York. How does that guy get elected? You know why he got elected? Because of women. Women elected that dude. Because why? What did he talk about the whole time? You know, housing for everybody, free daycare for everybody, free bus rides, and even go to a grocery store, you know, government-owned grocery store, you know, and man, who's he talking to? He's not talking to men. He's talking to chicks, right? And there he is, and he's reneging on everything he already promised because everything he promised wasn't even guaranteed. He never asked the governor, well, you're gonna let me have money for buses, right? She's like, no,
Yeah,
you
she was
know.
like the day after he got it inaugurated, she was like, no. And not
So
only that, she was like, and the answer was always no. She wasn't pulling a fast one. She's like, I said no when you were running. No, fuck off.
see, this is what we're dealing with, man. This is the mentality, you know. And then, you know, there's so many things you could add to this whole problem, you know, like the education system, you know. Our education system was designed deliberately to literally water down, dumb down, you know, our education, for example. And this goes all the way back to, you know, Rockefeller. I think it was 1913 when he started the General Education System or General Education Board. I can't remember what it was, but basically, when he basically, how the hell this guy gets in charge of that? Well, the only reason he got in charge of stuff like it because he had money. But and he even came out and said, "Yeah, I'm going to create a education system that basically creates a society of workers and not entrepreneurs."
Yeah,
Have you
drones.
what have you ever learned in school that would help you build a business? They never talk about that in school unless you take, you know, something. I don't even know if they have provide that. They didn't provide it when I was going through school. The best thing you can do about, or best thing you can learn about, you know, day-to-day living was home economics, right? That kind of bullshit. But how to write a check for, you know, out of a checkbook. But nobody's telling you how to, you know, start a business. And they think that's some college level shit, and it's not, right? I mean, it's just not. There's a lot of people who start business without a college education. Um, so that was part of this process, right? And the foods, the foods, right? And then pharmacies, and then, you know, and then you have the American Medical Association comes along and basically manipulates the curriculum for training medical doctors so that it's basically becomes dependent on the pharmaceutical companies and benefits from the food companies because the food companies poison us, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
To make
the
you need the
doctor
pharmaceutical.
diagnoses your poison right? And then they go to the pharmaceutical company for the palliative care because they're not going to try to cure you. They just want to keep you alive and keep giving you more drugs. It's a system. It's all one big system, and we're and if people think that it's just happenstance that we got there, it's not.
No.
You know, and this is where having an education counts. And not saying I'm the smartest guy, but I do a lot of research in this area because it's part of my coaching program. I don't coach people on being political or anything like that, but what I try to teach people is why are you here? How did you get here today? And what happened in history that brought you to this place? And should you stay in this place because everything was set up for you to be in this place, or can you go down a divergent path and go down your own road and become your own self? But anyways, by design, there are many people out there in the past that have created the system on purpose. Like for example, what is it? I can go off, I keep going on and on. The reality is this: we're in a place today because of choices that were made for political power, not only political power, but for economic power, pharmaceutical companies, energy companies. Everybody's manipulating us for money, not because we love each other and people are looking out for us and care about us. They couldn't give jack shit about you. Even our government, they don't care. With one exception, and I get in some arguments with people about Trump. Trump's not perfect. Of course he's not. Nobody is, Does he genuinely care about every American? He doesn't even know me, so how would he care for me? But what he does care about is our society because he knows what it was based on and who we are. And so I think he's trying to do the right thing. This is why he won't last and why the GOP probably won't last. Because the left is just, man, they are hell bent on bringing this party down so that they can impose more of their democratic socialism, which is nothing more than communism. At the end of the day, it's Marxism, it's socialism. They even use the word socialism. And what is socialism? Socialism is when you vote your way into you vote yourself into giving up your sovereignty, your freedom, and things like that. And communism is when you have to shoot your way out of it. And
Yeah.
by the time you reach communism, you won't have the guns to do it, right?
Yeah.
And again, this is where, most people are not even educated. Did you see the sheriff the other day from Macon
Yeah.
County?
Yeah.
Right.
Fucking saw
They
that.
asked him about who you work for.
You
That
mother.
dude, my wife and my son, all right, that lived in Indonesia, I mean, I had to prepare them to take the question because there's new standard now because Trump said, hey, you have to ask or answer certain questions about our country constitutionally, right? There's like
Yeah.
120 questions. They'll take 20 questions and you got to get at least, I think, 14 of them right. And I'll ask you everything about, what kind of government do we have? How many branches in government? My wife and kid from Indonesia know those answers. And this sheriff doesn't. And he's like one of the top sheriffs in the country. This is why we're in trouble. This is why we're in trouble. We have idiots in charge across the board, and I don't know how we got to this point right
No,
now, just from Delta Force going
no, I
to
actually, I actually think it comes full circle. Yeah, we got to wrap it up in a minute. I got to hop on another show, but I was gonna say, I think it actually does come full circle. So it's like, well, how would you fight Delta Force? And it's like if you're looking at it and you're like, all right, we can't. They've got the technology, the training, they are the spear. How would you fight it? You would fight it any way you could, even if that meant unconventional ways. How would you go about it? All right, they're bigger, stronger, faster, better trained than me. Well, what is like an unconventional backdoor? I don't know. Maybe use the women who can vote there to fuck up their society so we can flood it with people who then vote against the interests of the military and slowly over time wear down the fund. That you have to respect it. That's a way to go after Delta. If you can't go after Delta Force, it's like I can't hunt a shark. I'm never gonna fucking win against a shark. But if I can get a shark into like, I don't know, a bay and then I don't know, get a net wrapped around it, now I can just wait and starve it. Am
or
I
you get
bigger and stronger than the shark? No.
yeah.
But I could wiggle my way around and be like, all right, that's how we'll do it.
Or you
It's
get them in a bay, you dam it up and then drain the water, right?
that's what I mean. And it's like, does that mean I'm bigger and faster than the great white? Not at all. But you have to
No.
respect it and go, that is a way you win. I mean, ultimately,
Well,
that's how humans have won. That's why we've beaten out every predator. We're not bigger and stronger. We just
yeah.
found a different way.
The only thing I think is so the military has always been the last bastion for security,
Yeah,
patriotism, has
sovereignty.
didn't get corrupted. It has been corrupted. It's been corrupted quite a bit, particularly since Clinton, which is one of the reasons I retired. But so remember, not too long ago, those six politicians came out and
Yeah,
for no reason, just said, "Hey, remember, guys, if you're in the military, you don't have to obey lawful order." We all know that in the military. That's ingrained us from the outset, from basic training. We all know that. We don't need you, Mr. Suit and Mrs. Skirt, to remind us of that. I have leaders that do that for me all the time, and as a leader, I'm also aware of that and I enforce that. Right? So, why did they do that? Trump wasn't wrong. They did that because they're trying to subvert the military. The best thing they can do is because they're penetrating the military with the liberal thought, right? And that's why when I said earlier, I was on the Alan West show years ago when we were talking about integrating women. I said, here's what the play is. And I think he was quite aware of it. Was think about this. So infantry, all men. In fact, infantry pretty much is probably 99.99% patriots, conservatives, right? And that's why they're so effective and so dangerous. Same thing with Delta, by the way. I would tell you that probably 99.99%, if not 100% of all Delta operators are conservatives, hands down, unless they've been brainwashed later on. Um, when you have a like group of fighters, warriors, we all think alike. We all believe in the same thing. We're all patriots. We're all providers, protectors, builders. We are deadly, deadly. But now infuse liberal thought into that group with, say, a woman, right? Women or homosexuals, right? Right. Not all homosexuals are liberals either. I know some are conservatives, but where I'm going with this is infusing liberal thought or the liberal system of thinking, right? So, for example, I always use an analogy. You're in a field with your infantry squadron, you're in combat, we're on Hamburger Hill, right? We got a bunker up top and we got to go up there, we got to take the bunker, right? So, all right, man, all right, we're gonna go online, we're gonna fire maneuver up the hill and we're gonna kill the bad guys and take the bunker, right? Take the hill. But you got a couple of chicks in there, right? What we don't need to hear is, why do we have to go do that? Can we just send them a memo and ask them just to politely surrender or go out the back or join us? Right. In my coaching program, I always use the same analogy, right? This will probably make you laugh. So I always tell people, listen, man, imagine you're a caveman in the caveman days. Okay. And this goes back to my nurture thing. So we got to take care of the women, we got to feed the babies, but we got to go find food, me and the dudes, because we're the guys that can throw a spear, big rocks, we have the capability to carry shit back. So we go out, my hunting party, and we find a herd of mammoth elephants, right? There's dinner. So we round them up into a canyon, right? And we block it off, and then we're laying there going, okay, which one do we kill? And then me as a leader go, we're gonna kill the baby, right? What I don't need next to me is a male or a female going, why do we have to kill the baby? He didn't do nothing.
fuck up.
And because I look at him, I'll tell you why I'm going to kill the baby. Because first of all, he's smaller,
The
easier to
weakest, the
kill,
slowest. Yeah.
easier to carry, right? And by the way, we're not going to waste a lot of meat by killing the big one because we're not going to eat that guy tonight. We'll eat the little one. We'll take all the chunks back. He's smaller, and we save the older ones and make more babies. So we keep, sustain our food supply, right? Rather than killing the bigger ones off or the older ones off. Um, because basically eventually it's suicide. If we just kill off our prey, we're gonna have to move or we're gonna die in place, right? So we bring the baby mammoth elephant back, and the women that were taking care of the babies, building the fires, cleaning out the cave, right? Blah blah blah, picking up the berries. We come back, they cook the baby mammoth elephant. We're sitting around the bonfire. And then one of our scouts comes back and goes, hey, the Neanderthals next door, I heard they said they're going to come over here and kill us. They want to kill us, eat our baby mammoth elephant, and rape our women and enslave our kids. So me and the rest of the guys going, oh, hell no, right? What we don't need to hear is, hey, can we just send them an email or send a messenger, invite them over for dinner. We'll feed them baby mammoth. Let's just all get along, right? No, that's not how it's
Yeah.
going to work. Me and the dudes, all right, the
Gonna go
protectors,
fucking execute
fighters,
them.
right, the strategists, we're going to go out and we're going to do a direct action hit on these dudes and take them out before they can even get off their ass, or we're going to ambush them on the way here. That's how it's done. That's why we were designed this way, right? But and it's all in our nature, right? It's all in our nature. It's primitive. It's biological. It's a program that's ingrained with us. It's very hard to override that. and I'll give you one more example and now shut up, is stress in and of itself, right? So when you're under stress, something happens, right? Somebody scares the shit out of you. Or there's a dangerous situation evolving and you weren't ready for it. What happens under stress? All right, your heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, you get tunnel vision, you lose situational awareness, you lose depth perception. You push oxygen from the frontal lobe, which make all the conscious decisions, to the back of the brain, which is controlling the limbic system, which controls your fight or flight, the amygdala, the reticular activated system. By design, we push blood to our extremities because we want to engage our large motor skills, because we don't need fine motor skills.
Hmm.
We didn't pull the trigger back then. We threw big freaking spears and rocks and climbed trees and ran fast. We need gross motor skills, right? Um, when you're under stress, that's exactly what happens to you. Your heart, you can control it to some degree with training, right? Meditation. But once that heart rate goes over 120 beats per minute, especially when it goes up into the higher range, like 140, 160, you're in a space of gross motor skills. Now you got drama, you got problems. And this is why in modern, like with cops, for example, in a gunfight, they're slinging around. They might get some guys with training will hit their mark, but 20, 30 years ago, if I remember the statistics correctly, for every firefight in the street with a cop, for example, for like every 40 rounds that were exchanged in the fight, maybe 3 or 4 actually hit their mark. Why did they miss so much? Well, usually because gross motor skills they were crunching their triggers, indexing the muzzle, and slinging bullets all over the place, right? And so it's hard to override that primordial self, that responses mechanism, right? Because it was there to keep us alive a long time ago. Were we supposed to evolve to where we're at today? Well, we're here now. We do need fine motor skills, and it's part of the evolutionary thing, but we still have the remnants of who we were within us. And so when you start adding in the biology, the psychology, the sociology, the politics, you put all that together, and there's some smart guys back in the day. This is not new phenomena, right? This is not a modern phenomena. Everybody, even the Romans knew this. Romans knew how to do all this stuff. That's why they manipulated the population with bread and circus. It was mass manipulation, right? Distraction. Give them bread and circus. Today they give you what? A free Obama phone or some other bullshit, right? They keep you, or they create a scenario to draw your attention, like the ice raids in Minnesota. That's all they talk about, right? And there we go again, right? Who's out on the streets defending these
All fucking crazy women.
women again, right? It's them again. They're like defending the rapists and murderers and child molesters. It's just insane, man. We live in an insane place. But that in itself, if it ever makes it into the unit at that level, it'll be just like the FBI was under Biden. It will be completely
Hmm.
weaponized, right, and corrupted. And so that could possibly happen. I mean, it happened. It took me a long time to really believe that the FBI did. They really do all this shit, and now it's all coming out. Yeah, they actually did do all that shit, right? They were arresting guys for protesting, and they were arresting preachers in their house in front of their kids with a SWAT team because they spoke out against abortion. Wow. Now, so if they got that far, I know they were trying to get into the military, and they may succeed someday. That's what they're doing now. That's why these 6 politicians said that. What they're trying to do is manipulate the thinking, right, of everybody in the military, and they want you to think, well, is that legal or not, right? As soon as you start doing that as a soldier, right, you start challenging the leadership. I don't know if I want to attack that position on top of Hamburger Hill. When you start challenging things like morals and ethics and all kinds of other stuff, and usually they'll do that because they don't have an education, right? They'll challenge because they don't have an education, even though they're wrong. It goes back to what's it called? Uh, I forgot the name of it now, but it's where you think you're smarter than what you really are, and
Yeah, yeah.
Dunning-Kruger effect, right? So it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Most people suffer from the Dunning-Kruger effect. They think they're smarter than what they really are, right? They think they know shit when they actually don't. They got it completely wrong. And so when you put all that together, man, where do we end up? How's it going to end up? Your guess is as good as mine, but I don't think it's going to end well for not just America, but for the rest of the world. I think we're literally in our final throes. When you start adding AI into this picture, you know, and all the things that are happening in the world, all the conflict, I don't know where this is going to end up, but I think America is seeing its final days. No matter how hard Trump and the right are trying to save it, if they're actually trying to save it, but I think they are. I just don't think this is going to work out very well. And I think we'll know by the next election. If the next election gets handed to the Democrats, we're done. We were already pretty close to done. We were right on the razor's edge, man, last time, and we were circling toilet bowl, man. And I mean, it could happen again. And this time, I don't think we're going to recover from it. So,
The reason I do have hope it can recover is we know it's not that it's the edge sneaking up on us. Eventually, a lot of people are going to see that the edge is here. I think, like, well, what do we have to lose?
yeah.
That's my hope.
Well, I think you're right in that respect, right? There's a lot of people, so a lot of guys, men, okay, providers, protectors. I've actually said this before on Alex Jones show, and I think that the day could come where we say enough is enough, and you'll see that Second Amendment in play in this country, right? And you will see what a militia looks like of pissed off conservatives, and not even pissed off conservatives, but there might be some liberals and Democrats out there that'll get on board because they don't agree with all this shit either, right? And their survival's at stake. But yeah, I could see that happening. But you see, the Democratic Party, they're not, although they look like fools, they act like fools, they sound like fools, they know how to play this
They're not
game.
stupid, yeah.
They're playing the game. They're playing the long game, and they're using strategy rather than force to bring this country down, right? And they're doing it with, like, for example, when we talk about manipulation, right? So we had what, six conservatives just recently block the tariff that Trump wanted to impose on Canada. Um, See, that's the problem, right? There's no real unity and a cohesiveness, like even in the political parties. And should there be? Well, honestly, every politician is representing constituents, but even though you're representing your constituents, you still are expected to be honest and do the right thing, right? And so when you get six politicians, Republicans that vote against their own party, in particular their president, why did they do that? It's a team, right? So in Delta Force, if my assault team, um, if I told my assault team we're going to go that building, we're take it down, blah blah blah. The last thing you want is one teammate going, no, we shouldn't do that. We should go over here. No, man, I'm the team leader. We're going over here, and we're going to take this thing down to be successful. Well, I think it's a bad idea. I'm not going to support that. I'm not going to support you with any gunfire. I'm going to stand back here and watch you. Right? It's the same thing. They have the nerve. All of these guys have the nerve to call themselves leaders. All of them, even the broads, right, have the nerve to call themselves. They're not leaders. Not one person is a leader. Okay, not one person. You know what a leader is? A leader is actually someone, and I think it from the context of a military leadership that actually can motivate and inspire others to follow you and actually do things and make them believe it's their good idea, right? Even though you did it, make them think they did it. I look at politicians as nothing more than executive managers. And there's a difference between management and leadership. All leaders can manage, but a lot of managers cannot lead. They suck. Have you ever had a job where you work for a manager, and he's just making stupid decisions and he's an asshole? I have. I've seen it. And it's like, how the hell did you get in charge? You're getting paid all this money. You're a monkey. I mean, seriously, they're so no, I'm gonna say politicians are not leaders, they're managers. That's a misnomer, but everybody keeps using the word leaders. They think they're fucking leaders. They're not leaders. They don't know shit about leaders. Now, most of those guys have never led shit unless they were in the military. They never led other men. They don't understand, the real dynamics of men and women, and particularly under stressful or pressure type situations and leading them out of it. This is not leadership. This is just fucking management. That's all it is. All of it's just management. And I see Trump is right now just he's in damage control mode, trying to unfuck all this thing. And everybody's talking about how bad the economy is under Trump. Well, it was bad under Biden. We just inherited a shit sandwich, and he's just trying to scrape the shit off the damn bread for us. But it takes time. But it's all manipulation. It's all lies. And it's all done for mind control, and it's all done out of management, managing us and even our expectations and controlling that and controlling the outcome. And most people just like lemmings, just go along with all that shit right over the edge, man, to the abyss. I didn't. I'm walking a different path, and I think most people know that I do what the fuck I want, and I think I'm pretty sovereign, but I'm not 100% sovereign. None of us are. We're all bound by something, right? The law, I'm bound by several laws because I live in several different countries, but outside of that, I'm a little freer than most. But the best part is I'm a free thinker. You know, I'm a free thinker. I don't buy into all the bullshit, and I do the work. I actually do the work, and I highly suggest people spend more time actually trying to figure all this out and understand the human condition, because that's actually what's being manipulated here is the human condition. They're taking our programming and reprogramming it. They're taking our natural reprogramming and trying to reprogram it to their benefit. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I could. I'm not willing to.
That's all I got to say about it.
No, you're good. No, I'm not willing to rule out. We still get a win. Trump was never supposed to win 2024. He was never supposed
Right.
to survive. But so I just in general I look at it and I'm like, I
Well,
don't.
that's why I said manipulation, though. That's why I said manipulation, right? I believe the majority, more than half the country, anyways, is on the right and does and thinks similar to you and me, right? But the problem is the ones on the left, right? The guys pulling the strings, the manipulators, they're manipulating the system so that the minority gets the win, making it look like it was a majority that gave them the win, when in fact it was just a minority. Like, for example, one of the reasons I think we went into Venezuela and get Maduro out, because what? Guess what came out of there? The voting machines that we use, right?
Yeah,
And they know that shit. So I believe, I,
yeah. I think there's a
I'm
link
wrong,
there.
but I can
Yeah,
see down the road here, they're going to look at Maduro and go, hey, you want a lighter sentence? You want your wife to be free? You want a little, tell us about those damn machines and what you guys did, right?
yeah,
I can see that being a good cause for that. Um, because I think the left is going to do something like that again. Maybe not voting machines, because that's already been played. This is why they were against voter ID, and they're using the manipulating people again. They're telling black and brown people, they're trying to suppress your vote by using voter ID. Like, because you're black and brown, you're too stupid to get a fucking ID card, a driver's license. How hard is it to get a driver's license? Well, then it changed the script. They just changed the script. Well, it really disenfranchises women
yeah. When you
because
pay
they
a
got to
lot.
prove their real name and they got to get their birth certificates. Bitch, how hard is it to get the birth certificate? And that's all bullshit, man. Because once you register to vote, you can register your fucking maiden name and all that goes with that shit. You see what they're doing? It's constant. And then when they're telling black and brown people and other people, hey, they don't want you to vote, they're suppressing your vote by making you show an ID card. Do you think those people are actually going to research and go, well, let me see if that's true? And those that do go, fuck, I can get an ID card. Just walk around the corner of DMV and they give me a driver's license. What are you talking about, right? They don't expect them to do that. Remember when they said the other angle they used to use was black people and brown people, they're going to be suppressed. They're not going to be able to vote properly because they don't have access to Wi-Fi like white people do. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? They don't have access to internet? Are you kidding me, dude? Every cell phone's got internet. You don't need an internet system to go vote. It's so bullshit, man. But see, there's the manipulation. Some of these dudes, man, a lot of them, vast majority of them, man, I wouldn't mind seeing them hanging from the White House alone one day, man, because what they have done to our country and our people and our freedoms and the chaos they are creating deliberately, man, I tell you what, they deserve no quarter. And I said this, and I'll say this, and I'm sure I have to say this. I said this out loud already on international. Um, I said it one time. I said it actually a couple of times, but once on Ask Jones, I said, if the bubble were to go up, let's just say this were to boil over, because what they want is a civil war, right? They want us all fighting amongst each other, right? They want that. They can do all kinds of things in that scenario, and it will start like that. It'll start as a civil war. Eventually, it'll broil over into a revolution. After we get done kicking each other's ass, we'll go, who fucking started this fight? That fucker did up in Washington, D.C., right? And then and then what's going to happen is, I think that's when we go for them. But um, there's if I was planning the operation, let's just say hypothetically, I was going to plan an operation. Let's just say somehow I became the lead revolutionary dude in America, right? Fucking everybody's leaning on me. What are we gonna do, Comstock? How are we gonna fucking win? Well, the first thing I would do, this shot scare the fuck out of journalists. I would take out every fucking news fucking organization. Everyone, shut them down. Every one of them. And I'd go get every fucking left-wing journalist and fucking take them out, right? Because they're actually the messengers. They're the voice. They're the manipulator. They're the psyops element for the government, right? For these manipulators, right? That because they're using them to tell to tell their story and get feedback from society. We cut out that line of communication. All these politicians, all these manipulators are going to go, well, what's going on out there? What are you doing? What are they thinking? Right? You have to remove them first. You have to remove them first, right? Cut that communication system off, which I think would happen anyways. I think they'll cut off all our phones and shit like that, but they'll keep the news agencies running, particularly legacy news, which by the way is controlled by just a very small amount of people on the left. And then step two, after we take those guys out, then you go to you take out every politician, not everyone, everyone that's been opposed to us. There's some good guys out there, the politicians, I know them, and they're real. But you go and you PID you the real fucking knuckleheads out there, like this guy Swalwell, and you can think of as many as I can, right? Nancy Pelosi. These are all fucking evil, sorry, stupid, greedy, dangerous idiots. And when you start taking them out, you start reshaping our country, you start reshaping the government, and at some point, all of a sudden we have the reset, and we're back to okay, self-governing and moving on. I think that's how it would play out. But I also think that the media is very culpable, and this is the other problem too. Is with the media is podcasts like yours, by the way, all these podcasts coming out, right? They're actually now telling that you can't. It's hard to censor these podcasts. They've tried, like YouTube, they
I
censored
know.
you. But they're losing now, thank God, right? So now people are actually coming out and speaking. I'm cracking up. I look on Instagram. There's a bunch of um, different guys out there that are. I mean, they're just calling like they see it about racism and false history about blacks and this and that, and they're supported with some sources, and they're just coming out and saying what a lot of people are thinking, and they're not getting censored anymore. Thank God, right? Because I think Zuckerberg got his nuts clipped for doing that the first time. But the podcast is a benefit. However, flip side is the liberals have podcasts too now, right? So they can continue to spread their bullshit. So this is why podcasts I think are important because it's going to become the war of the podcast, and we're average dudes like you and me can go out and speak our piece, share information, tell our stories. Um, it becomes almost like if you will, an electronic village, right? We're
Hmm.
all part of it. I don't see everybody out there that's going to listen to me, and flip me bird or whatever, but we're all part of a village, right? But so I get to communicate. They get to communicate by texting, how much they hate me and shit, and they don't like my mustache or whatever. But that's freedom of speech. I'm good with that. I'm good. I'm thick skin. I don't care if you like me or not, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, now I'll shut up. I promise.
No, you're good. I got to bounce. My next guest is coming in there. But yes, we tell you, Marshall McLuhan, yeah, the digital campfire. He called it out like 60 years ago.
Oh, okay. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Marshall McLuhan, yeah, digital campfire. The medium is the message. That's his quote. I got to wrap it up. I have another guest. Dale, dude, as always, appreciate your time, brother. Always a pleasure. It's just wind him up and let him go. Fucking love you. Thank you so much, dude. Till next time, brother. Take
Take
it
care.
easy. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Three quick organizations that I try to help through the podcast. I don't take any money from, and I wouldn't if they offered. First and foremost is ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children. That's led by Basil Baz. It's been around since 1993. They physically liberate sex trafficked children. They get about 10 to 12 kids a year. I've got a fundraiser thrown for them before. You can go to the link in the description. You can donate, I think, as little as $1. It's tax deductible. They are truly doing the Lord's work. This isn't an awareness campaign. This isn't wristbands. They physically go in, kick down doors, and liberate children who are raped daily. They're doing the Lord's work. If you can go help them, you can go give $1. You can also take their training programs and do your best to help spot human trafficking in the world around you. It really is. if there's anything that this podcast accomplishes on this earth, I think it should be to help them. The second group is Invest, like a vest, a bulletproof vest, led by Mike Letts. 25% of police precincts in the United States cannot afford to give their, and this is true, cannot afford to give their officers cars, weapons, nor vests. They cannot do that. And you can donate as little as $1. They have donated over, I believe, 70,000 bulletproof vests in 30 years. Actually, Invest and ARC were both founded in 1983. Fun fact. And Invest is also doing something that is dovetailing actually with ARC. I put them in touch, BAR, Broken Arrow Ranch, which is to make sure that the kids who are rescued don't fall right back into the traffic system. So ARC, you can go in there and you can help them, and Invest, you can also go in there and help them. And lastly is the Church of the Barbarian Spirit. That's my buddy Clay Martin, Special Forces. It is a group to where Special Forces veterans are helping other Special Forces veterans in unconventional ways, be it fasting, be it psychedelics, be it just face-to-face talking, to reduce suicide rates. And as you guys know, suicide is very near and dear to me. So those are three groups that I really think are actively trying to make the world a better place instead of just talking about it. If you guys could just go check them out, go share their links, go do whatever you can. If you can donate, go donate. If not, that's cool too. But, long after I'm dead, and long after you guys are gone, I want the lasting impact of this podcast to be something that's genuinely helped the world. So if you guys can go check those out, that would be insanely appreciated. Thank you so much. Hey guys, a huge sponsor of the show is Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food. Clayton lives down in Georgia. He's been on the show before. It's actually nearby where I went to college. They are a huge sponsor of the show. They give me some money every month, even when I don't sell enough to warrant that paycheck. Meaning that the show is not free. It's just that it's free for you. If you guys need prepper food, or if you're just interested in supporting the show, I'd please ask you to go to the link in the description. Go to Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, promo code TPC for 10% off. 72 servings per pail, 25-year shelf life. These things are, they double as dumbbells. Pasta Primavera, cheesy potato soup, mac and cheese, loaded baked potato casserole, chili mac, cheddar broccoli soup, cheesy lasagna, teriyaki rice. You can get banana chips. There's also raspberries, strawberries, and apples. There's a bunch of freeze-dried fruit, or you can even get seeds to plant your own garden. It's not a bad thing to have. It's like gold or ammunition. It's a good thing to have. It's a bad thing if you have to use it, but it's good. It's good to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. So that's what I'd say. And if you just want to support the show, please go to the link in the description. Please go support them because they support me. Thank you so much, guys.